All right. So I'm trying something a little different because I'm gonna do a little more talking today, and I didn't want to do this on my phone because holding it in selfie mode for a little while can get kind of exhausting on your little arm. So I'm doing this on my laptop, and my laptop camera is not very good, and it's really weird seeing myself in it because there's like a slight delay, so we're gonna try. So I want to kind of get into the swing of doing maybe one video a week. And last week I was saying that it was 6 months since I had stopped counting calories and deleted MyFitnessPal, and went kind of more towards an intuitive eating approach. I don't like to put a label on it, especially because there was a short period when I was like, oh, intuitive eating, but then I kind of turned those guidelines into rules and would still feel food guilt if I was like, oh, well, I'm full, but I still want dessert, but I can't have it because I'm full, and that's not intuitive. Or, oh no, am I really hungry? I don't know. And like that kind of thing. So, yeah, anyway, I'm just going to grab the list I have here that has my talking points about why you should not count calories. And just before I start off, I would like to say I don't think that the counting calories or the MyFitnessPal or the If It Fits Your Macros approach is inherently bad. I think it is possible to do it and have a healthy mindset with it and just kind of be neutral towards it and let the numbers just be the numbers and, not get too obsessed or caught up with it. So if that's you, this video is not for you. You do you. You do what makes you happy. However, for a lot of people, and I was one of those people, and a lot of people are, you get too obsessed with it, or it's a lot of work, and you quit, and you just don't do it. So that's more what I've seen, but if that's not you, you do you. You do what works for you. And this is also, I guess, for people who maybe they're counting now and they're wondering if it's worth it, and they're not happy and don't know if they want to stop, but are like, or also maybe for people who are not counting calories and they're wondering if it's something they should do and kind of want another opinion other than, pictures of food tagged on Instagram as IAFYM. So there's a cat. Hi, Nugget. So number one on my list is that it's inaccurate. And that sound is my neighbors building something. It's fair that they make noise building stuff because I make noise doing Irish dance practice, and that was just my cat jumping off of the table. In case you haven't noticed, the cats they're just always in and out. That's my life. Number one, that it's inaccurate. So even if you're getting so precise with your measurements and tracking every single thing, which that's a whole other point I'm going to talk about, like that side of it, but it's inaccurate. And that's both on the calories inside and on the calories outside. Even with your packaged food, I believe the number is legally, there's allowed to be a 20% variance in any of the numbers you see on the nutrition facts. So with packaged food, we tend to think, well, that's by law, they have to have all those things on there. And that's true, but it's allowed to be that different because like this is not an exact science. Foods, they vary, like nothing, even, your most highly processed stuff, like it comes, some of it at some point came from nature, and stuff in nature varies. So produce has different amounts of micronutrients and calories and macronutrients and everything, depending on things like the time of year, on how long it's been on the shelf, and, you know, what the soil was like, what the weather was like. All of those things can make a lot of difference on the calories in. If you're, hi Frankie, there's the other cat, and kitty, you made me forget my thought, kitty cat. So there's that, and, you know, a new thing now that I cannot stand because it bugs me so much, and I'm trying to break myself of even thinking about calories. A lot of restaurants now, right on the menu, they'll have it. If it's not on the menu, it's very easy to find on the website. I know that a lot of them, even if it's not on the menu, you can find it very easily because I've spent a lot of hours doing calorie calculus. Ooh, I got a text. And that, like, it's almost not even worth looking at it because it's so wildly off. And that was the calories inside. The calories outside is what, you know, in determining how many do you need for your BMR or for your how many you burn through exercise. That, the best way I can think to describe of that was something that one of my calculus professors said in college when he was teaching us about mathematical models is, here's the real world, and here's math land. In math land, there's only so many variables, and everything is perfect, and it fits the model, and it's wonderful. Math land is kind of like, oh, well, in theory, everything works, so let's move to theory. But then there's the real world, which has more variables. Not only more variables than you can account for, but more than you can even imagine. And so this is things that comes down to individual differences in metabolism and just like little factors about your life and what your body is doing from day to day. You don't use the same amount of energy every day. And I don't even mean like, oh, well, you ran on Saturday and then you rested on Sunday, so clearly you had higher energy needs on the day when you were running. That's the big part, but there's also so many little things, like maybe you were exposed to a virus and your body is trying to fight that off to keep you from getting sick. That probably happens to me a lot because I work with kids. And then even up in like perfect happy math world, my phone is blowing up. So even in math world, these are just estimates, and there's so many different ones, and it's kind of mind-boggling how it all gets bogged down. So that's the big thing. We don't even know how many we need and how many we're actually consuming. So, you know, then it seems, when you realize that, it seems kind of silly to try to fit it into this precise little thing, because we're not making watches, you know? And then number 2 is that it's really easy to get obsessed with it. And so here's the thing that once I learned that it was inaccurate, what I went was, oh, well, I just need to weigh everything. And that gets really I keep forgetting what I'm thinking of here. But it's easy to get obsessed with it, is my point. It's easy to fall into, well, not only do my calories need to be exactly right, all of my macros need to be exactly right, all of my micronutrients, all of my sugar and my sodium, and I need to burn an exact amount of calories, and it all has to be exact. And then you get into this very regimented mindset on food, and what I got into was, I wouldn't just track what I ate. I would plan my food for the entire week, down to everything, and go ahead and put it all in. You know, I'd just take the time, just sit down on my phone and put all of that information in for the entire week. And then at that point, I couldn't be spontaneous anymore. I would refuse plans because I'd be like, well, I already planned my food for Thursday, so I can't go out on Thursday. You know, not even like, oh, well, I've made my food and I, you know, want to eat it before it spoils. Like, I couldn't be spontaneous because it all had to fit, and it all had to be exactly prepared by me. I had to weigh everything and measure everything. I almost got to the point where I brought a food scale around with me and weighed things. I had enough of a rational, healthy voice in my brain that said, that's not a productive thing to do, but, like, I wanted to. And, you know, I don't know, unless there's some medical reason why you need to weigh out exactly everything you eat, like, that's not a productive thing to be doing. And with that, the weighing, the planning, the perfection, and I sometimes with this I talk about behaviorism a little bit because I do have that background with working with children. It reinforces it reinforces the obsession. It reinforces this was a good day when you stuck to all your goals and hit your macros, and it encourages you to be perfect. And like I said, we're not making watches. That's one of my favorite phrases. We're not making watches. And the third big point rather, is that it can make you change your food choices and not necessarily for the better. I said before that it was very difficult for me to eat things that I hadn't made myself because I didn't know the exact weight of all the ingredients and the exact amounts. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with taking more control over your food and cooking more for yourself. I absolutely encourage that. But, you know, there'd be just some sad things. If someone would give me food, I would refuse it. Or, you know, accept it and then like put it in the freezer until think, well, I'll have a cheat day and then I can eat food that I didn't make myself, but then like that cheat day never came and I would, you know, end up throwing it away and wasting food that like maybe my mom had made. And that's sad to me. Then the other ways that it changes your food choices that might not necessarily be good is just wanting to eat things that are more easily tracked. And what that can look like is if you're out and you decide to get yourself a snack, you know, you might look at like an apple or something in a package and you'll think, oh, an apple would be a good choice, but I don't have my food scale, so how can I track the calories and the sugar and all the stuff in this apple if I can't weigh it? Versus, oh, well, I can just scan the code on this bag of chips. And there's nothing wrong with chips. If you want to eat chips, by all means do, but I don't know, I think that's kind of messed up when you get into a mindset where you think that like chips is a better choice than in like a piece of fruit. And for me, it also changed like how I would eat things. I wouldn't be able to just sit down and, you know, eat an apple or a banana. I'd have to weigh it. If it was something like an apple that had a core, like at first I would weigh it and like write down the weight and then eat it and then weigh the core and then subtract it, and then I realized I could just cut it up and but and then weigh the cut up pieces. But like I wouldn't bring fruit with me as a snack because I couldn't weigh it. Or like I'd also have things like if I weighed it and it weighed too much, like I'd cut off bits and throw them away because heaven forbid I have more than like 4 ounces of banana or whatever, you know. Those aren't good behaviors. Those are a little obsessive. And then the other thing with that, it's kind of going back to being afraid of food prepared by others, by being afraid of food eating out and all that. I got into the if it fits your macros thinking it would set me free, and this is true for a lot of people. I had so many food rules that I was so constrained by, but you know, I couldn't just let go of all of them. I was like, well, you know, if I do this, then I'll be able to, you know, eat a little candy or a little bread. That was my big thing, was that I was afraid of carbs. I can eat a little of it and I can be fine, and that will be how I find moderation and balance. But then I still had all those fears and was just as constrained. It just shifted. Because before I could, eat like, what was a safe food for me? Like a chicken breast. I could eat a chicken breast that someone had made. I could eat a salad, like with no dressing and cheese or fun stuff. But like I could eat things that other people had made. But then I started counting, and the fear foods shifted. It wasn't so much that there were different kinds of foods, but like just like it shifted. And it did not set me free, and that's very common. And the fourth one is that it's very easy for it to become unintuitive and for you to get completely out of touch with your body and just eat to the numbers. And that can go both in ignoring your hunger cues and in ignoring your satiety cues. So a common thing is, if you already tracked something, finishing it all even if you're already full, instead of saving some for later or leaving food on the plate or all that stuff, which is fine. And it's also fine to, eat your whole plate of food if that's what you want. But so you get out of touch with your satiety cues, or you might be like, oh, well, I still have some protein left that I didn't get throughout the day, so I'm full and I'm about to go to bed, but I'm still going to force myself to eat a little more. That's not good. And then obviously, if the calories you have set up for yourself aren't enough, just denying yourself and ignoring your hunger, and then you get very out of touch with your body. And then a very common thing when people try to stop counting calories, or even if they try to have a day when they don't do it, is there's this big fear of losing self-control. Like that was what kept you eating the correct amount of food, and that you can't trust yourself to do it anymore. And the reason why is because you've been willfully ignoring your appetite. And that's your control. Is if you eat when you're hungry and you stop when you're full, that's your control. Sometimes you have to accept that doing that, it might not put you at a body type that your brain wants you to have, but like that's like your regulation there. So, and then that's where that fear comes from. So you've ignored your regulation, and then you have to kind of relearn that. And I think that's a little messed up. A, to ignore it in the first place, and B, to get to a point where you don't know how to do that. I said at the beginning, I often question, am I actually hungry? Am I actually full? And I think that's why, because I was just eating numbers for a long time, not thinking about what I really wanted or needed. And then the fifth one, and after all, this is the final one, after talking about all this shouldn't be much of a surprise, that it just kind of sucks to do. It sucks to constantly be thinking about calories. And it sucks to have to get your phone out when you eat. It sucks to feel like you can't quit without completely losing control of yourself. And it takes a lot of the joy out of food and out of cooking and out of life. See, I actually really enjoy cooking, but then when I was tracking, I didn't, because it felt less like something I wanted to do and more like something I had to do, because I couldn't trust other people to make food for me. And so that's it. It's Friday, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And I'll maybe come back with something to talk about next week. Bye now.